Welcome to the next room. This is where we have conversations, very deep conversations about life. And like I was just telling the guests that I'm going to introduce you to in just a moment, nobody gets out alive, right? So this podcast covers a lot of topics. We talk about grief. We talk about near-death experiences, the afterlife, if people believe in that. I love to go there. We talk about getting your will together, a trust, your affairs. As a matter of fact, I just spoke to a friend this week that did a death cleaning, which we're going to have him on with his beautiful friend, and they're going to tell you all about that experience. So thank you for joining me on the next room. I think we're up to 18 countries now. It continues to grow. The downloads have been remarkable. I appreciate you listening, and I appreciate you sharing it. If you hear something that you think, yeah, that's going to help somebody, please pass it along. That really is why I'm here. And I had to do a deep dive to figure out, why am I doing this podcast? And quite simply, it is if I can help one person with their grief, one person to get their affairs in order, one person to strip away the fear of death, then I'll have done a great job. And that's what I'm all about. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to a man who I don't know as well as I would like to, and I'll explain. We are both broadcasters in San Diego, and we swirled around each other and we worked with a lot of the same people, but we never worked actually together. But we knew of one another, and what I knew of him, I absolutely loved. Positive, uplifting, no gossip, a spiritual seeker, and just a strong male presence that's not afraid to go deep. So I'm excited that he said yes, because I'm like, well, I need to get to know Rick more. So if I have him on the podcast, then we're going to become really good friends. So Rick Lawrence is my guest today. He is a third generation San Diegan. Yeah, that doesn't happen very often. I always think my kids are so fortunate. They're first generation Rainies in San Diego. He is a fellow broadcaster, like I mentioned, and he has had a deep exploration of his faith, starting as a very young boy. So welcome to the next room, Rick Lawrence.
Thank you so much for having me, Jane. This is exciting because these kind of topics are the kind of topics I'd love to talk about, and I don't find enough people to talk about them with. And now discovering you, like you mentioned, that we've swirled around each other in the world of broadcasting, knew of you. We've worked at the same places, but maybe not at the same time. And I always heard great things about you, but I never really knew this side of you. And when I did find out about this side of you, I was all, oh, wow, someone I can relate to and talk to a lot. So again, thank you so much for having me. And congratulations on your book, on the podcast. I'm just so happy for you. And again, thrilled to be here with you today.
Well, that's very lovely. It is interesting when you get connected to people because, we always say that the broadcasting business is so small, and it's true because you either know someone or you've worked with someone or you're a friend of a friend of a friend of someone. And we all do love to kind of take care of each other. It's a great industry, and I wouldn't have changed anything about my career thus far. And here we are still today.
Yeah.
I'm in my 60s. I don't know how old you are, but here we are still really bonding with broadcasting. Okay, Rick. So tell me, I know a little bit about you. So talk to me about when you were a child. You said as early as the age of 11, you vowed to read the Bible cover to cover. How does that happen?
Yeah, pretty ambitious goal there, that is for sure. Um, just curiosity about what it was all about. My parents were split up. My mom was not a real religious. My dad, he was in the sense that he went to church on Sundays. So when he had my brother and I for the weekend or whatever it may be on a Sunday, he would take us to church. Now, a lot of it I didn't understand. I had no clue what was going on. I'd be going in the little Sunday school class while they had, the main event with the adults in the church. But I was curious, and uh, a lot of it just, I go, what is this all about? I'm still not getting it. I mean, I was young, so of course I wouldn't. So I don't know why, but I said, well, I'm going to pick up this Bible. And it was the Good News back then, a little paperback called the Good News. And I started reading it. And this was all very interesting. I don't think I ever even got out of Genesis, but that was my beginning. And since then, I learned about myself that I was very interested in what God was, if there was a God for sure, what the universe was all about. Very curious. I just had a really curious mind. Um, uh, a, a reader, a voracious reader. Everything I found, I read basically. Um, Getting on that ambitious tone of mine, I tried reading War and Peace too when I was 12. So that kind of gives you an idea of never finished that, but I vowed to finish some things, which I did later in life, but not those books. But uh, yeah, my curiosity was tremendous. And I was just a sponge. And back then, when I was growing older, it was the 70s. So we had it was a lot of it was love, peace. There was a lot happening after the 60s. A lot of people were talking about unity and peace and love and like Elvis Costello said very famously, "What's so funny about peace, love, and um, what was it?
Understanding.
Understanding." Thank you very much. And yeah, what is so funny about that? Because it became kind of a, oh yeah, whatever, woo woo, it's airy fairy. But it really stuck with me, and my mother had a lot to do with that. And she gave me, especially she gave me so many different books to read. Here, you need to read this. She gave me Malcolm X, and she gave me writings of Martin Luther King. And she goes, you need to study these real hard, and because that was the time. And I did, and I took that to heart. But I didn't really serve me then so much because I was still very young. But later in life, it all came back. And I was very curious in watching shows and listening to radio, basically, radio preachers and them talking about the end times and this and that. And, oh my goodness, what's that all about? And really? And well, was it just Christianity that says that? Or do other religions talk about these times? And what's their take on that? So it got me kind of rolling into dipping my foot in, not so much a toe, but a foot into these other faiths. And I go, wow, that's really enlightening. That makes sense. Well, that's really enlightening. That makes sense over here. So I was putting basically together my own spiritual, I guess, my own religion in a sense. Whereas a lot of people eventually became, well, yes, I'm spiritual, but not religious. And that still is like the fastest growing uh, faith there is, spiritual, but not religious. So I had my own ideas about certain things and said, okay, I can be happy with that for now. But, everyone's claiming to be the top dog, you know. Christians say it's Jesus. Hindus, Krishna say it's Krishna. You've got the Muslim faith says Muhammad. And that was one of the main things which I didn't really go to for one religion because they all claim to be the one all, that's it. And that just didn't sit with me right. I go, they all claim to be the truth. But my understanding and my study of these different religions seem to be, well, they all are coming from the same place, aren't they? Kind of. I mean, they're all talking about God, right? What makes this God better than that God? And I came to the point that I already knew there wasn't more than one God. I had pretty much decided there's just one, but all these religions claim to be the true and only. And my mother And so that basically was my life up until the time I was in my 20s. And I hadn't even gotten into radio yet. I got into radio rather late, actually. And that's a whole nother story, how I got into radio. Never in a million years would I have thought that I was going to be in that industry and how it would serve me and the people I would meet, the wonderful, most gracious, most loving people that I now know from this industry. But in any case, my mom's boyfriend came over to the house one time, and I think I had the Bhagavad Gita out on the dining table. I was looking at some stuff in there, and he looked at it and says, "Oh, you're reading the Bhagavad Gita?" And I said, "Well, I'm not reading the whole thing, but I'm getting, you know." Anyway, that sparked a conversation on spirituality, on God, and go, "Oh, here's someone I can talk to about these certain things." I said, "Well, what do you think? This, that." And he started relating all these things that I could agree with. And I go, "Wow, really?" And he goes, "Yeah, you know what? There's a faith, a religion that pretty much has summed up everything you believe in. Um, you might want to check it out, or you might not want to. But here's a book. If you ever get the time, open it up, see what you think. Might help you along." So I did. I went to the beach, took this book. I said, "Okay, I'm gonna be at the beach." Started reading this book, and all of a sudden, and these were the writings of the prophet of the Bahai faith and his son, who would later take over the faith after he uh, passed away. And the language was so flowery and but so deliberate and so commanding. It shook me like nothing else did. I said, "Oh my God, this is God talking. I've never found that before." And I was kind of scared. I go, where's this faith been? Because it's starting to put all the puzzle pieces together for me anyway. And again, all this talk about the Baha'i faith stuff, this is just my interpretation.
Okay.
And I'm not proselytizing or anything like that. In fact, you are not allowed to proselytize in the Baha'i faith. You don't go door to door. If someone wants to ask you about it, well, sure, you can answer some questions. And then just, again, give them a book, say, "Here you go." One of the main tenets of the Baha'i faith is the independent investigation of truth. Truth is truth. And because your parents were Baptist or Muslim or Catholic or Hindu, doesn't necessarily make you that. You just don't inherit that because you were born in a family like that. It believes that you have the ability to understand all these faiths and the truth that they have to bring, and you can put those puzzle pieces together for yourself and decide, okay, this makes a lot of sense. You don't have anybody else telling you, well, this is what it means, and my interpretation of this. So there's no clergy in the Baha'i faith either. It's well, we can talk about that later, but so that's how I started my I guess my journey, and the journey never ends. It still encourages me to still look at all these other faiths, go to the writings themselves, glean what you can out of them, and become that better person and closer to God from it. So, and right now, all I'm basically trying to do is just be a real good, kind human and be of service to others if I can. And
Yeah.
that's pretty much it.
Well, I think you can check that box off, Rick, because you
Okay.
are a good, kind human. So you're doing a deep dive and you discover Baha'i faith. Let's talk about that just for a second, because before, when we were not recording, I had told you I lived in Chicago for a couple of years, and so many things resonate with me that you've said. Seeker, curious, You know, when I was a kid, I was the same way. I was like, well, what about this? What about that? And what about this? And my folks really encouraged me to expand on my own, even though I was raised super buttoned down Christian, church every Sunday. Um, my folks were still very, very open to discussions about everything, which is why I am who I am. Um, so when I went to the temple in, I guess, would you call it a temple in Chicago, there were 9 doors. Explain to me the philosophy around that because I found it really welcoming.
It is meant to be welcoming. The Baha'i faith is open to all faiths, all religions. It is, uh, which is the whole point of it. It basically believes in the oneness of humanity, the oneness of all religions. All religions talk about God, so it believes, well, yeah, there is one God. They're all talking about the same God. There's no real difference between them all. And each one has been another chapter in the revelation of mankind as he moves throughout uh, his journey. So, and the 9 doors, you're talking about what we call the Mashriq al-Adkar, which is the mother temple in America, the very first temple that was built in America, and Wilmette is where it actually is, right there on the lake. And the 9 doors signify that it's open to all faiths. A lot of people put the 9 doors as a symbol for every kind of faith that has come in, well, since, I guess, Abraham. Uh, in the Bible talks about that. It's all the Abrahamic faiths, including Moses, Abraham, Jesus, also Muhammad, but as well as Krishna, Buddha. Um, they are all coming from the same source, bringing the same message, only now it's in terms that level of civilization and humanity can understand. Each one is tailored by that prophet of each faith to the understanding of us at the time. So it's a continuation and succession of, I guess, revelations, as we put them. And they're all manifestations of God. Now, God is pretty much unknowable, knowable, but yet unknowable, because that's a whole nother realm of existence. We'll never know what the true reality of God. And the only way we can even get a glimpse of that is through his prophets. And these prophets, we wouldn't say, are not God in the flesh, because God can't just make himself flesh. That's God. He's God, but he can find a soul that is a complete, stainless, spotless mirror. I guess you can liken it to metaphors, is what I like to call it. Everything's a metaphor. Everything is meant to be a metaphor for you to really study and look at and think about. Our whole contingent world is, the saying, as above, so below.
Yes.
Well, that's if you think about that, what provides all life on this planet? Without the sun, we wouldn't exist, pretty much. So the sun is a metaphor for God, pretty much. That is our life force, that sun, on this worldly plane that we live in. The prophets are the perfect mirrors that are reflecting that sun, and that way we can understand who God is or what he's about through those perfect mirrors. And all the prophets throughout the ages have been those perfect mirrors.
Hmm.
But everything's also a cycle. if you think about it, and another, a metaphor that teaches us right there are the seasons. There's, there's spring, everything's brand new, alive, fresh. Then becomes summer. Okay, we're living through that. Then it becomes fall, and then it becomes winter. But when it hits the bottom of winter, that pendulum starts going back up again. And then there's a whole nother springtime. And that's what humanity does throughout the ages. It's been a cycle of springtimes and winters and springtime. And every time it comes to that's winter, humanity needs a little shove again, a reminder. Come on, let's get you going. Another prophet appears, and that's usually between anywhere from 500 to 1,000 years, pretty much on the nose, with all the major prophets, just to get us back on track and to keep going forward.
Where
So,
where do you stand with your faith through Bahai on death? And is it a final chapter for you? Do you believe in heaven or nirvana or moving on, reincarnation? What is it? Talk to me about that. And like we said earlier, this show has flown, so we don't have that much time, but please,
yeah,
I want to touch on that.
okay. Basically, in a nutshell, um, yes, this is one small little time we spend. Our souls are endless. There is no death. Death of the physical body, yes. But um, we are made from, we're an essence of God, basically. We don't die per se. The physical body dies, but and I wouldn't go so far as much as saying reincarnation, because we've pretty much had the life here on this earth. We don't need to come back to this earth as a human being. We're always going forward. There's a lot of, I think a lot of the talk about reincarnation and some of the religions that talk about that have been maybe, I want to say misinterpretations of certain things, but there's no reason for us to come back in a physical form. We're always moving forward, always going ahead. There's an essence that we leave behind us, but the soul will live forever and ever. The worlds of God are limitless forever. That's big. I know it's hard for us in our little worlds here to think beyond that. That's just wow. But God always provides us with some guidance. It says, okay, you've learned this. Now here's a little bit more. Here's a little bit more. And with each successive faith and religion comes another one, and keeps us right on track and keeps us going to keep humanity going. And humanity, for what we know now, it could be, I don't know, how many years, millions, but we don't know for sure. But God will always be with us, and He'll always stay with us, and He keeps us on the right track. So basically, and the Baha'i faith believes that it is the next succession. Every faith has talked about a time when the world will come together finally. Not just Christians, but every faith talks about a time that the world will finally come together and it's the maturation of humanity. We've gone through birth, the pains of adolescence, and now we're right to that point where we're moving into adulthood. And those pains too are tough. And we're going to see a lot of falling away, but a springtime of new things as well. So it basically believes that the springtime is on its way. It's developing, it's coming. And we are going to see the promise of every religion, all that. Now, you and I may not live long enough to see its total fruition, but we're starting to. And that's what the Baha'i faith pretty much is all about. And that this is the time that every single religion has talked about, every single one of them. when that time when humanity will finally come together. And that excites me. And that's what keeps me going and makes me very happy for humanity. I'm not a pessimist. I don't think, oh, well, look what we're doing to ourselves. We're blowing ourselves up here. We got that. Okay, yeah, we're going to have to go through that. In fact, it's probably not even, it's gotten worse as it's going to get. It's going to get a lot worse, more than likely. But in the end, we'll come through it and we will be an amazing race. So, but that's not the end. It does
Wow.
not, with like, let's say the prophet of the Bahai faith, his name is called Baha'u'llah, which is Arabic for Baha, which is glory. Au is of, and Allah is God. So, glory of God. That's the title of the prophet of the Bahai faith. And I didn't take it lightly when I was first looked into this and go, wow, these are some big freaking claims here. Wow, are you kidding me? So I studied the faith for years before I actually became a card-carrying, let's say, Baha'i. But it has served me well in my journey because it helps. I can bring in every faith and talk about it and not claim that, well, mine is the only one. Sorry about you. I
Yeah.
can bring them all in, and it's one big happy family to me,
Yeah.
anyway.
Well, you know what? That's a very healthy place to dwell, to think that you're superior over anyone or anything or any religion. I think you're kind of missing the point.
Yeah.
We need to work together, all humanity. Okay, got a couple just minutes left. I'm going to give you the final words here before I say goodbye. What is it? What truth or what would you like to leave the Next Room audience with today? Like a thought that you would encourage them to do?
To do is to don't just listen to what somebody has to say and say, okay, well, they're the authority. They would know, right? No, you have the capacity and the understanding to know everything. You just have to search it out, look it up, do your homework, and what feels good to you. And wow, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. If it sounds too, well, that's kind of woo woo, or that's too much for me, I'm not sure, then maybe it's true. Listen to your gut. Listen to your gut. Um, there's, and I encourage most people of any faith, to dig deep into their faiths, but other faiths as well, and peruse the Baha'i faith if you so choose. It worked for me. It made a heck of a lot of sense that we're all in this together. One religion isn't to be espoused over another. We're all pretty much the same on the same trip, going the same way. God is just keeping us along the path with those cycles, up, down, up, down, up, down. And when the world has gotten so horrible and just jaded and just, that's when you'll find another prophet probably appearing somewhere else in the world that brings a whole new religion. Again, it's like the springtime. Everything around us is a metaphor. Everything around you is a metaphor, if you really think about it. You have a springtime and then a summer, and then it starts to fall, and then you have a winter. Well, the springtime needs to come again. So whatever it is, you're down and you're feeling, yeah, I'm never going to get out of this, or I don't feel right about this. Well, that's okay. The springtime is coming again. And what worked for me, all I can say is, what do I want to leave you with? There's so much. This is not enough time, really. But the world has changed by your example, not your opinion. Your greatest strength is realness. That's the kind that may make some people uncomfortable. but authentic people inspire. Um,
I think
what is the,
that's pretty good.
yeah, I'll
So
leave you with one, and also about, because um, I guess in keeping with the main theme of what you talk about on the show, there's an Indian poet that received the Nobel Prize, Rabindranath Tagore. He said, "Death is not extinguishing the light; it's just putting out the lamp because dawn has come."
beautiful.
And trying to think of anything else I can leave you with here. Just be kind, as you always mentioned. Um, help others, even when you know you can't get help back. Um, and the troubles of this world will pass. But what we have left is what we've made of our souls.
Hmm. Okay. Wise words from my guest, Rick Lawrence, today on The Next Room. Rick, thank you so much for joining me. And thank you for the downloads that we're getting and sharing the podcast. And the Facebook page is just growing so quickly. It's a little frightening because now we're getting a few trolls and some people that are not there for the right reasons. So
Of
I'm
course, yeah.
actively trying to stop those individuals from just, leaning on such kind people that I have in the community. So stay with me. I'll get those buggers blocked one way or another. And thank you. Thank you for everything and just being part of this community with The Next Room. I appreciate you. Thanks again. I will talk to you again next week.
Thank you so much for having me, Jane.